Watch this. What if you're the reason your life feels stuck?
It doesn't feel like avoidance. That's the problem. You don't wake up and decide to escape responsibility for your own life. You just adjust. You delay certain decisions. You ignore small things. You tell yourself you'll deal with it later. And at first, it feels harmless, even reasonable, because nothing breaks immediately, nothing collapses, but something subtle begins to shift. You stop stepping forward when you should. You stop taking ownership in small moments, and over time, those small moments begin to define your direction. Not because you chose it consciously, but because avoiding responsibility felt easier than facing it. And the most dangerous part? It doesn't feel like avoidance. It feels like waiting. It often starts with small, almost invisible patterns. You hesitate when it's time to act. You wait for clarity instead of creating it. You look for the right moment. You tell yourself you just need more time. And sometimes that's true, but not always, because there's a difference between patience and quiet avoidance. You delay conversations. You postpone decisions. You stay in situations longer than you should. Not because you're trapped, but because taking responsibility would require discomfort, and your mind notices that. So it protects you. It offers safer alternatives. Wait, think more, be sure. And without realizing it, you start building a habit of not choosing. Your mind doesn't call it avoidance. It reframes it. You call it being careful. You call it thinking things through. You call it not rushing. And sometimes that's valid. But here's where it becomes dangerous. When careful thinking replaces action. When reflection becomes delay. When awareness becomes passivity. You convince yourself that you're still in control, that you're just preparing. But deep down, there's something you're not facing. A decision, a responsibility, a step you know you should take. And each time you avoid it, you reinforce a pattern, not of failure, but of inaction. And over time, that inaction becomes your default response. Nothing dramatic happens at first. Your life doesn't fall apart. Things continue. You adapt. You function. But slowly, your progress begins to stall. Opportunities pass, not because they disappear, but because you don't step into them. You remain where it's familiar, where it feels manageable. And from the outside, everything looks fine, but internally, there's a quiet tension, a sense that something isn't moving, that you're capable of more, but not acting on it. And the longer this continues, the more your life becomes shaped by what you avoid instead of what you choose. There's a strange comfort in avoiding responsibility. You don't have to risk failure. You don't have to confront uncertainty. You don't have to deal with the weight of your own decisions. Everything feels lighter, more controlled, more predictable. And that comfort can be convincing. It feels like stability, like balance, like you're keeping things under control. But you're not. You're just staying in a space where nothing demands change. Because responsibility demands action, and action brings discomfort. So your mind chooses the safer path, not moving, not deciding, not fully engaging. And over time, that comfort becomes a trap, a quiet one. At some point, you start to notice it. Not all at once, but gradually. A feeling that something is off. You're not failing, but you're not progressing either. And that's when the question appears. What am I avoiding? It's not always clear because avoidance hides well. It disguises itself as patience, as caution, as timing. But when you look closer, you start to see the pattern. Moments where you stepped back instead of forward. Choices you didn't make. Responsibilities you didn't fully take. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You don't avoid responsibility in one big decision. You avoid it in small, repeated moments. Moments where you choose comfort over action, where you delay instead of deciding, where you wait instead of stepping forward. And over time, those moments shape your life, quietly, gradually, without resistance, until one day you look around and realize you're not where you wanted to be, not because you couldn't get there, but because you didn't fully take responsibility for getting there. And that's a difficult truth, but also an important one. Because if avoidance was built in small moments, change can happen the same way. Not in one dramatic decision, but in small, intentional actions. By noticing where you're holding back, by choosing to step forward even when it's uncomfortable, by taking ownership even in simple things. Because you're not stuck, you're just avoiding something that matters. And the moment you stop avoiding it, your life begins to move again.